Sigmund Freud. Prudence is only a part of spiritual life. In addition to it, many more unreasonable things happen in the soul, and therefore it happens that we are completely unreasonably ashamed of our dreams. Most people don't really want freedom because it comes with responsibility, and most people are afraid of responsibility. The unconscious represents a special mental realm of the infantile. Being completely honest with yourself is a good exercise. In the unconscious, everyone is convinced of their own immortality. If a person begins to be interested in the meaning of life or its value, this means that he is sick. Analogies do not prove anything, that's for sure, but it's somehow more comfortable with them. Undoubtedly, the problem of anxiety is the focal point of many important issues. The solution of the riddle of anxiety will shed a flood of light on the whole mental life of man. Delusion is a patch placed on the spot where the original rupture arose in the relationship of the ego to the outside world. In a certain sense, what we call happiness happens as a result of the preferably unforeseen satisfaction of long-held needs. In prayer, a person is assured of a direct influence on the divine will and thereby joins the divine omnipotence. In terms of the creation of the world, for some reason there was no place for a simple thing to make a person happy. Sexuality combines the most sublime and the most base. In dreams, flowers often symbolize the human genitals, perhaps giving flowers, that is, the genital organs of plants, to lovers in general has it this unconscious meaning. In the Middle Ages, they would burn me. Now they only burn my books. At the moment when a person begins to think about the meaning and value of life, one can begin to consider him or her sick. In the course of the development of culture, so much of the divine and holy was extracted from the sexual that the impoverished dreamer began to be despised. Even in one's own house, one is not the master. Depression is a frozen fear. Childhood, devoid of a sense of shame, later seems to us a kind of paradise, and yet this very paradise is nothing but a mass fantasy about the person's childhood. For each of us, the world disappears with his own death. Spiritual changes do not occur too quickly, except perhaps in revolutions. Psychosis. His Majesty the child must fulfill the unfulfilled desires of the parents, become a great man instead of the father, a hero. The daughter must receive the princess' husband as a late reward for the mother. The only purpose of life is the very process of existence, i.e., eternal struggle for survival. If we accept as an exception-free fact that all living things die, return to the inorganic for eternal reason, then we can only say that the goal of all life is death, and going even further, that the inanimate existed before living. Our instincts, these guardians of life, were originally companions of death. If one could not find anything in the other that should be corrected, then the two of them would be terribly bored. There are people who can only access the logic of soup with dumpling arguments. If you want to be able to endure life, prepare for death. The desired is a reliable and, in all significant respects, complete picture of the patient's forgotten years of life. Our imagination always works according to old patterns. A woman should soften, not weaken a man. Cruelly trampled on by reality, the immortality of the self is preserved by finding its refuge in its own child. The task to make a person happy was not part of the plan for the creation of the world. Consider the disturbing contrast between the radiant mind of a healthy child and the dementia of an average adult. Illusions attract us because they relieve pain, and as a substitute they bring pleasure. For this, we must accept without complaint when, in conflict with a part of reality, illusions are shattered. It is explicit homosexuals, and among them, first of all, those who do not allow themselves an outlet in sensual acts, who are distinguished by their especially active participation in the common interests of mankind. The truth will set you free. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Every dream has at least one place where it is incomprehensible and umbilical cord, so to speak, by which it is connected with the unknown. Everyone creates God in the image of his Father. Each individual has given up part of this wealth, the fullness of his power, the aggressive and thankful inclinations of his personality. From these contributions came the possession of material and ideal goods. However, by virtue of his intractable constitution, is unable to participate in this suppression of instincts, opposes society as a criminal, as a renegade, unless his social position and outstanding abilities allow him to come forward as a great man, hero. Each philosopher, writer, and biographer invents his own psychology, puts forward his own hypotheses about the laws and purposes of mental acts. In the field of psychology, there is no respect and authority. Here, anyone can poach according to their own tastes. As tempting as it may be for the psychoanalyst to become a teacher, a model, an ideal for other people, and create people in his own image, he should not forget that this is not his task in the analytic relationship. In doing so, he will only repeat the mistake of the parents who suppressed their child's independence with their influence, and will only replace the patient's early addiction with a new addiction. How bold and self-confident becomes the one who gains the conviction that he is loved. When I'm criticized, I can defend myself, but I'm powerless against praise. When the neurotic comes face to face with conflict, he takes flight into illness. Love is the most proven way to overcome shame. Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanity. Love is the most reliable way to get rid of the feeling of shame. People are more moral than they think and much more immoral than they can imagine. I never pass off unfinished and incomplete as complete and ready, and I always try to change my statements when they no longer respond to my beliefs. Sigmund Freud.